This is the Renegade Teacher blasting out with another transmission. Folks, I'm super excited to have you on board with me tonight as we continue our journey through the stars on that quest for rationality in public education. Folks, as I am rounding out the week with you, as we near our weekend, I decided that it would be a good idea to visit a few Wikipedia articles with you tonight that I believe if we look at them together, it will highlight some of the unbelievability in some of the educational jargon that we come across and that we are told to use in our daily work. The first of which is differentiated instruction. The Wikipedia article for differentiated instruction says that differentiated instruction and assessment, also known as differentiated learning, or in education, simply differentiation, is a framework or philosophy for effective teaching that involves providing all students within their diverse classroom community of learners a range of different avenues for understanding new information in terms of acquiring content, processing, constructing or making sense of ideas, and developing teaching materials and assessment measures so that all students within a classroom can learn effectively regardless of differences in ability. Wow, that's a lot of words in one big sentence. It says students can vary in culture, socioeconomic status, language, gender, motivation, ability, disability, personal interest, and more, and teachers must be aware of these varieties as they plan curriculum. As if teachers are not aware of that diversity in their classrooms already. Folks, differentiated instruction has been a thing for a long time. It to me is a statement of the obvious in a lot of ways. I'll read another. Actually, I'm going to skip around here a bit. Notice that in differentiated instruction, the assessment, even the article starts off with calling it differentiated instruction and assessment, but it has a focus on allowing students to have multiple avenues to express their learning. So I'm going to take you briefly to a different article. This one is on universal design for learning, and I'll state here before we get into this UDL. I'm going to shoot off on a tangent. Because I noticed that this article says at the top it contains content written like an advertisement, and to please help by improving it. I want to address the Wikipedia hate, the hate cult that has formed around Wikipedia. This myth that anyone can modify information on Wikipedia unchecked. This is a very pervasive misinformation campaign happening. It's all tied back to the net neutrality controversy, which, to be completely honest, I am not currently 100% aware of the outcome of that controversy. But from my understanding, it was a huge movement, a politically motivated movement to attempt to give all viewpoints, regardless of their comparison to the consensus of professionals. It was a political movement to get all viewpoints on all topics equal coverage on the internet, and the problem with that is that not all viewpoints deserve equal coverage because they are not equally valid. So I just want to come out before I get too deep into the main point here, and make it clear that Wikipedia, if you ever tried to edit an article or even for just for fun or in any serious way, you will quickly come up against a whole community of professionals on the topic on which you're trying to edit that will reverse the change, realigning it with the consensus of professionals. Wikipedia is not a good place to try to conduct research, but it is a good place to try to find the consensus on a topic and to start an investigation of a topic. So I'll move on here. I want to read to you some information from Universal Design for Learning. It says it is an educational framework based on research in the learning sciences, including cognitive neuroscience, that guides the development of flexible learning environments and learning spaces that can accommodate individual learning differences. Universal Design for Learning is a set of principles that allow teachers with a structure to develop instructions to meet the diverse needs of all learners. Recognizing that the way individuals learn can be unique. The UDL framework, first defined by David H. Rose of Harvard Graduate School of Education and the Center for Applied Technology, CAST, in the 1990s, calls for creating a curriculum from the outset that provides the three following things. It says multiple means for representation to give learners various ways of acquiring information and knowledge, multiple means of expression to provide learners alternatives for demonstrating what they know, and multiple means for engagement to tap into learners' interest, challenge them appropriately, and motivate them to learn. I'm not going to continue reading to you. You should look at both of these articles. But if you stop and think about it, folks, UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, and differentiated instruction are the same thing. There is no difference between them, and anyone that is claiming that there is simply splitting hairs. I'll jump back here because since they are essentially the same thing, I thought it would be a good idea to share with you on the page for differentiated instruction. There is a good section here on criticisms of this idea. And again, I'm going to go through this before I give my personal take. But the criticisms laid out for differentiated instruction, it says, multiple sources in education research have criticized the differentiated instruction and its basis in learning styles as being unsubstantiated in any empirical fashion. The sources include Mike Schmoker of Education Week, who claims that after a lengthy email exchange with architect of DI, she conceded there is no solid research or school evidence in support of DI. Now, I'll take that with a grain of salt. It is a hearsay type thing. However, we'll go on. It says, in educational research, John Geek states, the evidence consistently shows that modifying a teaching approach to cater for differences in learning styles does not result in any improvement in learning outcomes, and that implementing learning styles, citing VAK specifically, does not reflect how our brains actually learn, nor the individual differences we observe in the classrooms. Folks, there's more in this section, but it appears to me that we have to be careful on this topic because we don't want to come across as being against the idea of instruction being relevant to students, being reasonably accessible to them, but at the same time, we cannot be serious if we think that in middle school and high schools, that this type of approach is going to work, given the current structure and responsibilities given to teachers. I'm sure that these ideas are working in certain spheres of education, but the majority of secondary schools are in crisis. It is simply unrealistic to expect that a teacher could fairly assess students in any way that the student chooses to be assessed on an individual basis, and for it to be anything approaching fair. This quackery, we cannot take this anymore, folks. There's no difference in the ideas here. It's just another rebranding of more educational jargon. Of course, it's a good idea for students to have multiple ways to express their learning. However, once they become adults, that's going to go away. Workplace is going to destroy these individuals. We are giving them too much flexibility in terms of their education. We've removed the teachers as the content delivery, the bastions of the knowledge for these students. And I thought it would be cool to dig around a bit and see if we could find something that could explain to us the difference between universal design and differentiated instruction. And I found a blog post. I don't feel necessarily good about naming the person, but you could find it if you want to. I don't want to pick on the individual, so to speak, but I want to just highlight some of the things that are said here. The blog post is called "What About UDL versus Differentiated Instruction?" And I don't know if it's a good idea to read the whole thing. It's not that long, but perhaps the best way to break this down is that the author of the post tries to explain the difference using an analogy to a dinner party. So it says that, let me find the exact spot here. It says, if you were thinking like someone using DI, okay, pause here for a second, folks. We have to stop using two-letter acronyms, two-letter abbreviations for things that only require two letters. Can we please just say differentiated instruction and not say DI? And can we please say teaching assistant instead of TA? This is unbelievable how sickening these abbreviations are. My God, folks, give us a break here. There's too many other things that these two-letter symbols could stand for, and it just hurts our damn heads, so please stop. It says, if you're thinking like someone using DI to plan a dinner party, you might assess, again, this is differentiated instructions approach to a dinner party. It says you might assess each guest by asking about food allergies and giving each guest a specific plated meal according to their food preferences or allergy. It says, in comparison, I think the UDL dinner party would plan for a variety of guests by serving options that are vegetarian, gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free on a buffet. This way, each guest could make choices according to their own diet or appetite. Everyone achieves the same goal of having a yummy meal. However, the combination of what each person eats can be unique. Folks, this analogy it's clever, but it's also foolhardy, because it doesn't take into consideration what would happen at this dinner party if someone preparing their meal who is allergic to tree nuts accidentally scoops some tree nuts into their dish because somebody else dumped them on the buffet in the wrong bowl. You got to give me a break here, people. The students are not capable of designing their own curriculum. They're not able to evaluate information. They're not content specialists. They do not have the skills necessary to make these decisions for themselves. I'm sick of the nonsense here, folks. This is disgusting. I appreciate the blog post here trying to shine some light on the difference between the two, but there is no difference between the two. They're both complete disasters. In an equal fashion, they assume that the students have an ability level that most of our students do not have. Again, I'm sure it's working in bubbles, but the rest of the world is completely lost, folks. There's way too much being put on our educators for them to be able to differentiate instruction the way that it should be able to be done, and rebranding it all from one name to another is not fixing the damn problem. This is a unmitigated disaster. Our schools are in 100% crisis mode, and we cannot allow students to have the responsibility of picking how they're going to consume information, because as soon as they are through school, they're going to have no ability to withstand any pressure, any adversity. They simply are going to fold, folks. And sometimes I speak as if this is always a thing happening in the future, but if you look around at the world, we have a stack of generations that are now living with their parents, well beyond any stretch of reasonability. They simply cannot take life, and it's making me sick to think that we are setting up the current crop of graduates to be in an even worse situation than we've prepared the ones that we've already seen the outcome of. What the hell are we doing, folks? Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is insanity. This whole mess, folks, we're going to need to start to have the bravery and the audacity to speak the hell up, to start calling out the problems and having that voice to band together. Folks, this is no longer, we no longer live in a time where we have excuses to not organize on a national level. This is unbelievable that teachers are being expected to do all that we're expected to do, and never see any reduction in all of the paperwork and all of the responsibilities that are stacked onto us. It is mathematically impossible to perform your duties without going completely insane, folks. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I will wind it down some here. I know that in the coming week, I will be looking at more quantification of all of what teachers do in a day. I want to break out the math yet again and start doing some calculations to drive the conversation forward about how to proceed in terms of bringing this to the attention of enough people to where we can start to be heard and to start to affect change. Folks, if you are enjoying the content being produced for you on the channel, please show some support, like the video, and subscribe. As we reach the weekend, I will be passing out of range as I go beyond the dark side of the moon. I look forward to reestablishing a connection with you next week. As always, stay safe. And this is the Renegade Teacher checking out.